Today we are using this MacBook Pro to create a Windows 10 bootable USB so that we can install Windows 10 onto our brand new custom built PC or blank Windows machine. What's up guys, my name is George, I'm a freelance video marketer based in the north of England. On this channel I share content all around tech, filmmaking and freelancing, so if that is your vibe then hit subscribe and welcome to the channel. Today I am creating a follow-up video to my Windows 10 bootable USB video, which a lot of people have had success with, but some others have been having some trouble. So before we get into this updated version of the video, I would like to just address a few frequently asked questions. Probably the most frequently asked question is whether or not you need to activate this copy of Windows 10. You can download Windows 10 from Microsoft.com as we're going to in this video, and you can use it to install Windows 10 onto any Windows machine, and that copy of Windows 10 will run seemingly indefinitely, but after 30 days you will then get a little watermark essentially prompting you to activate your version of Windows 10. You can purchase Windows 10 activation keys either from Microsoft or from other third parties, and that's for the Home, Pro and other editions. There's no real obligation to activate your copy of Windows 10, but it will mean that you have full access to customization options within your user experience of the software. If you are actually not looking to use this USB to install onto a blank Windows machine and you're actually wanting to install Windows 10 onto a Mac laptop or a Mac PC, then you are looking at the wrong video. You can go check out this bootcamp tutorial in which we do install Windows 10 fully operational onto this MacBook Pro. I'm actually going to be creating an updated version of that video very soon, as some people seem to be having some hardware issues once Windows 10 is installed. So if you are looking out for a video like that, be sure to subscribe and you'll see that coming out in the next couple of weeks. The process used in this particular video is using the October 2020 build of Windows 10, as there's no 2021 build yet as of making this video. As soon as there is, if there are any issues, I will drop those in the comments below in the pinned comment, along with links to other alternative versions of this process. I've just realized that the wall behind me has been blown out and the sun's going in and out of clouds today, so just try and ignore that whole white mess. It's just a problem. The other two remaining problems that people seem to have happen within the process. I will address them as we go over them, but the main two are with step 4, which uses Homebrew. And if the Homebrew link is not working for you, I'll also drop a link to the Homebrew website in the description where you can copy the full, most up-to-date command that will work within your Mac OS terminal. And one last thing to note, if you are installing a non-English US version of Windows 10, then you will need to make sure that your ccc-oma file extension in the commands reflects the one that you have in your disk image. But again, we will go over this visually when we are going through the process, and that should all be clear for you. So now let's get into step 1 and download Windows 10 from Microsoft.com. Okay, so with our Mac open, we're going to open our preferred web browser. At the moment, I'm using Microsoft Edge. And then we're going to search in our search bar Windows 10 ISO. This will then come up with Microsoft.com, download Windows 10 disk image. This is the same disk image for pretty much every version of Windows 10. You will only pick whether you're going to use Pro or Home when you ultimately buy an activation key. You can see the same thing reflected on the Microsoft website. So we're going for Windows 10 October 2020 update. Product language, I'm going for English, and then download. I've already got this downloaded. So we can see my .iso version over here, and if I double click on this, this will expand the volume, and within here we can see all of our contents. Over to the left, just this is very important, the same thing that's reflected in the actual source contents. We have this ccc-oma FREEN US, that's English US DV9. As we go through the commands that you will see in the description below, you will have to change the command to reflect what yours says if you are not using an English language version of Windows 10. So if when you've gone through and you've done Windows 10 and you've gone to select product language, if you've selected any other language, it's very likely that your copy will say something different here. So in the commands, you will need to change that to reflect the version that you have downloaded. So now that we have our Windows 10 ISO downloaded and we know we've got all the contents in, we can insert our USB. This will then pop up under our locations down here. And then the next thing we want to do, I'm just going to close off Microsoft Edge just so it's not taking up space anywhere. I'm also going to close off this disk contents as I don't really need to be viewing this at the moment. Here in this text edit file, I have got the same commands that you guys will have in the description below. But first, I would just like to show you a quick reason why we're going to be using Mac OS Terminal and why we're not just copying things straight over like we would with the exFAT method. So under our sources, we can see here that we have an install.wim file that is 5.34 gigabytes. We are going to be using the MS-DOS file format on our drive. We are not going to be using exFAT. And the reason why this is a problem is because MS-DOS does not use single files that are larger than 4 gigabytes. And in order to use this USB between a Mac device and the PC device that we're going to be installing Windows 10 onto, we need to have it formatted as either MS-DOS or exFAT. For this particular process, we are doing MS-DOS, so that's why we need to use Mac OS Terminal and Homebrew to be able to split up that file. So the next thing we're going to do, just go to our disk utility and just check what our current USB drive format is. I've just formatted this as MS-DOS. If you'd like to do that again, we are going to be formatting it again during the terminal process, but just so you can be completely clear that this is starting from 0, you can hit erase and that is now reformatted as MS-DOS FAT32. So now that we know we've got everything in place that we're going to need to use, let's go up to Spotlight Search at the top right and we're going to search Terminal. If you're anything like me, before you've tried this process, you've likely never used Terminal before. Before I first ever did this process, when I was setting my Windows PC, I dipped my toe into Terminal once or twice before, but I never really had that much success with it. But it might look a little bit daunting, it might look like a bit of coding, but don't worry, it's literally a case of copy and paste and you shouldn't have any problems. If you have any questions about any of these steps as we go, drop them in the comments below and I'll be sure to answer them for you. So we're going to copy our first step, which is diskutil list. This is essentially going to bring up the same disk utility window we just saw, but instead it's going to demonstrate it for us in the terminal window. So it might look a little bit codey. So as soon as we pasted it, we can see everything down here. And then what we want to do down here is we want to pinpoint which one is our external USB. And we can see at the bottom here, I've just named mine Win10 and I can see that. And it's got 30 gigabytes free and my drive is a 32 gigabyte drive, so that makes sense. And the disk number is disk 4. The reason why that is important is because our next step, as you'll see in the description, will say diskutil arrays MS-DOS Windows 10 MBR diskN. What I would like you to do is replace that N with the disk number that you have in your terminal window. So in my case, it's disk 4. I'm gonna copy that, put that over here, and then that is now formatting to create it and name it as Windows 10. And you can even see mine's actually currently visible on my desktop. That has now renamed it to Windows 10. So we know that all the commands we're doing right now are following through and doing what we need them to. So here on step 3, we can see that we've got our volume name that I mentioned before. We need to check that this CCC OMA X64 FRE EN-US DV9 reflects the one that we've got under our locations below our Windows 10 drive here. So just make sure that they are completely identical. Otherwise, this will not be able to complete this process for us because it will be trying to look for a drive that doesn't match. So I'm going to copy that and put it into our terminal. And what this is doing, this is copying over the entire Windows 10 ISO disk image, apart from the install.wim file that I mentioned previously, because that one is too big and we need to split that one into 2 before we can put it onto the USB drive. So you can just watch the coding magic happen below. Cool, that is all done. So now, if I click on this Windows 10 file, I've now got most of the disk image in there. But if I go into sources and I scroll down to where .wim would have been, we can't see it. So we know so far that that has not been copied over. So now we need to continue the process and install Homebrew. So step 4, we're going to copy that. As I mentioned before, there will be a link to the Homebrew website in the description. So if you want to go on there, and there will be the up-to-date terminal command for Homebrew, if and when they have changed their Homebrew link. And sometimes YouTube likes to shorten the link in the description for the command, which some people had a problem with. Cool, so once we've done that, Mac is now asking for our permission to install Homebrew. And you can see here we've got the password and the lock. You want to put in your admin password. When you do this, the characters will not appear, so just type them in, trust that you're getting it right, hit enter. If you get it wrong, do it again. There's passwords. See, no characters whatsoever. Hit enter, it's fine. This now says, you have Homebrew, yada yada yada. And now, hit enter, it's downloading and installing Homebrew. While we're waiting for Homebrew to finish installing, I would like to thank you guys for sponsoring today's video. If you've been watching the channel for a while, or if any of my videos have helped you in the past and you would like to consider supporting the channel, you can check out the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description below, where you can donate to the channel by buying me what is the equivalent of a coffee. If you'd like to support the channel in that way, it's always massively appreciated. If not, just consider subscribing and liking this video, and let's get on back into the process. Okay, that was the longest I've ever had to wait for Homebrew to install, and my Mac was heating up and whirring up like a jet engine, but it's fine now. We're in, it's working, cool. So Brew is now working. We can go on to step 5. So step 5, we have just brew install wimlib. You can just type this in, or you can copy it over. Hit brew install wimlib. This is going to install a piece of software called wimlib, and wimlib is the one that is going to split up our install.wim file for us. I have now got an error saying wimlib is already installed because I've already got this version of wimlib because it doesn't get updated that frequently. So that's absolutely fine. But it's actually suggested if we want to upgrade it to hit brew upgrade wimlib. So I'll do that just for safety. Cool, right, that is my wimlib now upgraded. So we have just one step left to go, and this might take a little bit of time. Step 6 sometimes can take a while. That was the first time Homebrew's taken a long time, but step 6 usually takes quite a long time. Similar to step 3, you want to make sure that the volume that you have selected in step 6 reflects the volume that you have got in your locations. So this is everything we need to copy over and split up our install.wim file. So we're going to go down to the bottom, hit paste. Saw here straight away, you may have just noticed that my files are just nudged down. So we've got our install.swm, that has just bumped up. And we can see on here, we've got volumes, Windows 10 sources install.swm, so that is the one that's just popped up. And this may take some time, so be patient. This could take up to 30 minutes, so go away, get a coffee, go check out my Buy Me a Coffee, and come back when this is finished. Okay, so our wimlib has now successfully split up the install.wim and split it into our 2 install.swms that you can see over here, one of which is 4.19 gig, the other of which is 1.11 gig, and we can see that is now completed within terminal, which means that our Windows 10 ISO bootable USB has been completed. That process took about 10 minutes for the final little bit, so be patient if it does take a while. Also, don't be afraid of crossing off terminal, starting again. But if you do start again from step 6, I would actually suggest starting the entire process again, because you don't want to confuse the volume with having different versions of the install.swm file in there. It's best just to start the whole process again, because the whole process only takes about 30 minutes. So do not worry if you need to do it again. It's much quicker, cheaper, and overall easier than going out and getting a Windows laptop. So with that, we can now eject our Windows 10 USB, and that is now complete, and that's ready to use on our Windows 10 machine. Make sure when you put this into your custom built PC that you are putting this into the rear of the motherboard, into the actual IO, and not into any of the USB ports on the case, because you want to make sure that it's actually picked up by the motherboard when you go into your motherboard's BIOS and select this as your primary boot drive. That is it from me today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you've found it helpful. If you have, please remember to like this video, drop any comments down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if the video has helped you and you feel like supporting the channel, please check out the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description below. And until next time, I'm out.